Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little black subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that black subscribe button. Really does help our audience grow, really does help our channel grow, really does help and mean more than you could possibly know. So go ahead, hit that little black subscribe button. Also, thank you to our presenting sponsor, Betfred Sportsbook and the Betfred Sportsbook app. Bet 50 on any game, get $250 in free bets. Thank you again to Betfred. Thank you again to you. Now, here is the video that you came here for. All right, everybody, I am back. Good to be back. I do want to switch gears and really talk about the topic that basically everybody who covers college sports is talking about here on Wednesday night. It is December 21st. Hope everybody's having a great holiday season. I am, of course, talking about National Signing Day, okay? So National Signing Day was Wednesday, the first National Signing Day. And when National Signing Day kind of wraps at 3, 4, 5 o'clock Eastern time, on the first Wednesday where kids can sign their national letters of intent, basically everybody in the media does the exact same thing. They do their winners and losers of National Signing Day. I don't want to do that, although that's no discredit to them. Listen, to be clear, there are a lot of great people, guys and girls who cover college football. So this is not a criticism at all. But I do think kind of at the end of the day, we all kind of know who the winners and losers are, right? Winners, obviously, Dan Lanning, Oregon, Alabama, a million 5 stars on top of the million 5 stars they already have on their roster. Obvious losers are probably Ohio State, Notre Dame, schools like that. So I'm not going to do what everybody else is going to do, although I'm sure at some point we will do a winners and losers segment. But instead right now, I want to focus on one specific school that I don't think will probably get enough credit here on National Signing Day. Because the bottom line is everybody's going to focus on the 2-3 schools at the top, the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Miamis, the Texases, the LSUs, the couple that struggled. And sometimes context matters in terms of who we talk about and who we should give credit to. And so what I want to do now is give credit to a program that won't finish in the top 15 on Wednesday in any recruiting service that I saw. A program that probably won't be on the tip of everybody's tongue when they talk about the winners of National Signing Day. But I want to give credit to this specific program because at the end of the day, there's an old saying, it's not where you start, it's where you finish. But sometimes it's not even where you finish, depending on where you started. The program I am talking about is the Auburn Tigers, and the coaching staff I am talking about is Hugh Freeze and the guys he has surrounded himself with. Because if you look at Auburn, the bottom line is they are not in the top 15 of any recruiting service. But if you fully understand where they started and the hole that Hugh Freeze and his staff, and I want to give credit to Cadillac Williams, Zach Etheridge, some of the assistant coaches, if you know the hole that staff had to dig themselves out of, I'm just going to tell you, I think Auburn did as well as anyone on National Signing Day. They are not going to get the credit they deserve, and I think they deserve it. And why I want to talk about Auburn specifically is a couple of reasons. One, great day for the Tigers. But two, to fully understand why I want to talk about them, you have to understand how far behind they started, right? It's one thing to finish with the 15th, 16th, 18th, 19th class in America. Many schools that would be good enough. At Auburn, it frankly probably isn't. And the bottom line is I understand any Alabama fan and Georgia fan that's sitting there saying, yeah, I'm supposed to be scared of Auburn because they signed the 16th ranked class according to On3 Sports. I get that. But at the same time, here is what Hugh Freeze walked into a few weeks ago. Hugh Freeze inherited a recruiting class that, depending on which recruiting service you follow, they were ranked somewhere in the low 50s to mid 60s. Do you understand that you almost have to try to not recruit at a school like Auburn to be that low in the recruiting rankings at any point? And I can tell you, bottom line, I'm not a recruiting expert. I don't claim to be. But that was basically what Brian Harsin and his staff were doing by the end there at Auburn. Not all of his staff, because obviously Hugh Freeze retained a few of those guys who worked really hard for him, Cadillac Williams, Zach Etheridge, as I said. But it was interesting. I was watching the National Signing Day coverage on 24/7 Sports. I thought they did a great job. And I could not tell you how many times, I heard it at least a half a dozen times. Yeah, well, that last class, that last coaching staff, they didn't really prioritize recruiting. That last coaching staff, yeah, recruiting wasn't their number one priority. It wasn't their main focus. Do you understand how incompetent that is from any coaching staff, especially in the SEC? I was thinking about it. That's like basically being in a marriage and saying, yeah, communication isn't all that important to us. Spending time, well, that's not really our thing. Spending time together. That's the bedrock of everything you do. And in college football, recruiting is the bedrock of everything you do. And so that is the situation that Hugh Freeze walked into, 60th, somewhere in the 60s in recruiting, and he got them into the top 20. And to be blunt, almost every guy that he got committed, it has happened over the last couple weeks, okay? Not a recruiting expert, but here are some of the news and notes that you need to know. One, it really started probably about 2 weeks ago. They flipped a really high caliber offensive lineman, specifically a center from the University of Miami, a kid named Connor Lew. Nice commitment. Miami, they are recruiting their butts off under Mario Cristobal. You flip that kid, that's good. From there, a few days later, they flipped a kid named Sylvester Smith, a 4-star safety, ended up being one of their top recruits in this class from Tennessee. Those were both probably about a week to 10 days ago, depending on, either one. Had a couple nice portal additions this past weekend. For people who don't follow the portal, they had a loaded portal class on campus this weekend, including Devin Leary, who ultimately committed to Kentucky. But they also got 2 really good portal commitments this weekend. Rivaldo Fairweather, tight end from Florida International, Elijah McAllister from Vanderbilt. But then there was National Signing Day and the lead up to National Signing Day, where even on Tuesday, they really started to build some momentum. A couple really good junior college prospects, including the top offensive tackle in junior college football, Xavion Miller. Oh, and then National Signing Day came, and Hugh Freeze and his staff, I believe we're calling it Merry Flipmas at Auburn, because they flipped so many guys. Keldrick Falk, the highest rated recruit in their class from the state of Alabama, flipped from Florida State. On top of that, and this one caused a meltdown in Buckeye country, Kion Lee, another 4-star, was their 3rd highest rated recruit overall. He flipped a cornerback also from East Georgia area. He flipped from Ohio State. Ohio State is having a meltdown right now. He was one of several players that either flipped or was expected to commit to Ohio State and didn't, but Auburn gets that guy. And so I looked it up just for fun. And overall, Auburn locked in 4 of their top 5 recruits just in the past probably week or so, certainly since Hugh Freeze got there. And again, credit to the other coaches there. I don't want to make it all about Hugh Freeze, but credit to him and his coaches, because 4 of the top 5 commits that they got were in the last couple weeks. That doesn't include the transfers that they have. It doesn't include the JUCO kids that they have. And it doesn't include, by the way, who they may still get in the portal. On top of that, between the last week or so and National Signing Day, they flipped kids from Ohio State, Miami, Tennessee, and Florida State. And at the end of the day, and when I say the end of the day, I don't mean the proverbial metaphorical end of the day. I mean the literal end of the day. Auburn, which 3 weeks ago when Hugh Freeze took over, had a recruiting class ranked in the 60s or 70s. Now, according to 24/7 Sports, has the number 19 recruiting class in the country. And according to On3, they have the number 16 class in the country. And so the bottom line is, as we get out of here, just a couple things that stand out. One, again, I understand if you're an LSU fan, an Alabama fan, a Georgia fan, you're not shaking in your boots, you're not crying, you're not freaking out, you're not whatever. But you have to start somewhere, and credit to Hugh Freeze and his staff for getting on the ground, going, and being able to sell this program. And I don't care how they did it. Oh, NIL is a real thing. Playing time is a real thing. Auburn is a great place. And they put together a very compelling package for a lot of kids that were looking for a place to play. So credit to Hugh Freeze. Couple last thoughts. One, I don't think they're done. The one thing that they can offer that few in the SEC can like they can, that is playing time. And so I expect them to continue to be active in the portal. Remember, there's still about, 20 or so days in this cycle of the portal for players to enter. They're still very much in the mix for some marquee guys in the portal. We'll see if they get a quarterback. There was some Grayson McCall buzz from Coastal that's kind of been hot and cold. We'll see what happens there. But they have plenty of time, playing time to offer. Remember, Jimbo Fisher about a month ago, everybody was like, Jimbo, how are you still recruiting so well with all these losses? He said, look, we got the golden ticket here. We got playing time to be had. And so I think it's the same with Auburn. I don't think they're done. There's going to be a spring transfer portal cycle, and I think this roster gets flipped significantly. Now, look, are they winning the SEC next year? Of course not. Are they winning the national championship next year? Of course not. But at the end of the day, this is why I was always a proponent of hiring Hugh Freeze. Last time he had a coaching opening, you went outside the SEC, You brought in a guy from the outside. He didn't know what it took to recruit in the SEC, to coach in the SEC, the day-to-day commitment that you have to greatness. Hugh Freeze has been there. Hugh Freeze has won 9 and 10 games. Hugh Freeze has won at really high levels in the toughest division, in the toughest conference of college football. That is the SEC West. Again, it's going to take time. It's going to take more than one class, especially when your two biggest rivals are Alabama and Georgia. But I'll tell you, I think relative to what they walked into, I don't believe that there was a bigger winner on National Signing Day than Hugh Freeze and the Auburn Tigers. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor, make sure to subscribe to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. Also, full episodes of the Aaron Torres Podcast available on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to this page, download the podcast, and I very much appreciate your support.